Welcome back, guys. So this is the last video in our CAD portion of the series, and it's all about power user features of Fusion 360. So there are just a few quality of life features. If you've been using Fusion for a while, this video is for you. But if you're just starting off, maybe skip this video unless you're really committed and you really want to adapt Fusion. So in that case, you can watch this video and get a good sense of some of the power features that we use at the center and I personally use all the time. So the first feature we're going to discuss is the timeline, and I have to review a lot of CAD files on occasion. So for example, let me go look at one of my own design files. Badge, medallion 2. And I sometimes have to see what the student did to isolate where the error was propped up. And you can use this as well. The timeline is on the bottom and it will play out like a movie. So if I hit play, I can see all the work the student has done in order to achieve the design that they are intending to manufacture. And I can see and make sure that they haven't made any mistakes. Now, this takes a bit of experience to get used to being able to see the mistakes quickly enough, but this is really useful. This is a really useful way of checking for mistakes that you made in the CAD design. The second thing I deal with quite often is disputes about which version, which variant, which relevant version has anyone been working on, who made what modification. Effectively, in a team, someone says this person did this, someone says this person did that, and someone says this person did that, and we're all confused about, okay, who exactly made the mistake here, or how much time was actually put into this design. So Fusion, more than just using web-based file hosting for your CAD design, also gives you version history. So if you look here, this is version number 12. So that means there have been 12 saves. So what one can do is expand this and see that I started the design on 5/10 at this time, and then someone else took over the design the same day, and then looks like from 5/11 onwards we literally forgot about it for a month, and then on 6/3 is when we really started to do the design again, and I started it off and the other person a week later followed up and did some more work, and that is how this design was created. And it's completely possible that the other person made a mistake and I want to go back to a previous version. So I can open that version. So right now what I have is version 10 of this medallion open. This is version 12, and you guys can see that there was a little bit of a shift in sizing. And if I really want, I can also make this the primary version. I can come here, save as latest, and what will happen is it will take version 10, create a new version 13, and put the version 10 on top, effectively saying, okay, we made a mistake and we messed up the model. So let's go back to when we didn't mess up the model and make that the primary version. And now we're all synchronized in what we need to do. Now, obviously, I'm not going to do this because this is a real design I use, but that's a power feature you should be familiar with. We use this administratively as well. So when we are helping a student do their design and we are approving their design or approving their CAM, we hit save and we create a milestone stating what it is that we are approving. And the purpose of that is, if I just go ahead and click OK right now and give Fusion a bit of time to load, you will see that there is a version right here and it has a flag next to it. And that flag is indicating that there was something major in this version. And the comment there is milestone. Now, I could have commented on what it is that's major about this. And usually what we do is we do this with students often because they can accidentally make modifications or unintentionally make modifications that gets rid of their approval. So TAs can safely retract to the last officially approved version and use that as what we will run on the machine. So that's about versions and timelines. We'll look at a few other power features. So I talked to you guys about measure, and measure is great when you're trying to measure between things. So let's say I want to measure this, and I want to know the distance between them. So I'm going to get two distances called out. One is this point to that point, which is 0.467, and I'll get one from this point to this point, which is 0.717. This is great, but if I just wanted to measure the diameter of, let's say, this circle, it's a bit cumbersome. What most people don't realize is when you click on a feature, on the lower bottom edge, it actually just gives you the measurement of that single feature. So I don't use the inspect or measure tool all the time. I only use it when I'm measuring between things, not when I'm measuring the properties of an individual thing. Let's say I just want to know the size of this line. I can see that it's 0.696, and I don't need to open up anything. That's another power feature. Now I'm trying to think what other power features there are between students. Interesting. So I emphasized a lot that it's important that we use components when we are doing assemblies, or at least are familiar with the concept of using components. So sometimes people don't use components, and one power feature I use often is I'll go to a complex assembly. So let's go to this one, which is a complex assembly. Let's pull it up, go to the design environment, and then I can see how students have interacted with the model. So in the browser, I can see that whichever student created this, they did not accidentally start sketching in the assembly. But if I go to something like this, VF2, I can see that they have a couple of sketches under the sub-assembly VF2. I can also see that they have a bunch of sketches under the sub-assembly inside the sub-assembly, so a sub-assembly VF2 table. And these are the sketches I see. And I can also see that there's a component called VF2 table, and it has its own sets of sketches and its own body. So I can use the browser as a way of gauging, could this person have made the mistake of not really putting the right features within the right folders on component sub-assemblies, assemblies. And that can sometimes help isolate problems with references. Another feature that you should be quite familiar with, because you'll need it when you're working with complex assemblies. Right now there's a lot of information density here, and let's say all I really want to see is this reference sphere right here. I can right click on this and hit isolate. And when I isolate, I only see those items. And when I'm done, I can right click on isolate and then zoom out to the entire thing. The other thing you guys might have noticed is I have this colorization that not everyone has, and this is also an inspect feature. It's called display component colors. I can turn it off and I can turn it back on, and what it's doing is it's switching between whatever color you've assigned to it to a color scheme which is based on components. So I see pink here, or actually green here for the medallion. So if I were to isolate the medallion, it should be green in color, and if you guys can see, it is green in color. And same thing happens here. Any feature that is associated with the component will either have the color of that component or if it's associated with multiple components, it will basically have the color of every component as a spectrum. So this is an analytical tool we use to see which reference is associated with which other reference. And I would say those are the main power features I would like to share. And hopefully you guys enjoy your time using Fusion 360 as a CAD environment.